back to Northside Pyro. Today we're going to do a little something different. I've been asked by a couple of different people to do a react video, so we're going to react to some firework fails. I always like to watch firework fails heading up to the 4th of July, just to kind of remind myself of what can go wrong, and just, it's always a good refresher to remind yourself to be safe and to do things the right way. Most firework fails are usually either going to be human failure or stupidity, a failure of the product or a failure of environment. So let's take a look and see what these look like. I got a compilation. I haven't watched through this yet. And, we'll see, it could be funny. So let's take a look, and I'll also try to break down and see if we can't figure out what it is that went wrong. So let's get into it. So first of all, this is going to be stupidity. Do not do this. Yes. Over his ass. Second degree burns maybe, but he's not going to be in good shape in the next couple of days. Let's see. This woman, they're lighting a cake, and then it just all goes up at the same time. So they probably tried to refuse that cake, or maybe they even put that cake together themselves to begin with and fused it up with quick fuse. It all went off at the same time, and it looked like it may have been lit upside down because nothing is going up in the air. It's just waging war on the neighborhood here. It just keeps going. So it was a big old, at least 500 gram cake, and it looked like it was upside down and quick fuse. Oh man, this terrible decision making. It's still going. Let's see here. Okay, so that was a homemade shell, and you're going to see it's going to explode here in a second. I can tell you already. They didn't put enough lift charge. So they didn't put enough black powder to actually go up high enough to be at a safe height in order to explode. And now, sure enough, this thing explodes on the ground. It was a homemade shell, probably a 6 to 8 inch shell that somebody made at home. It looks like this may be some sort of a pyrotechnics get together or convention, and somebody made a homemade shell, didn't put enough lift charge in it, and then it just falls on the ground and wreaks havoc. Here we have, that's a cake that tipped over. Everybody has seen it who does fireworks. In fact, I'll put a link here to a video of a firework that I did that failed, that tipped over. It's terrifying when it happens. Okay. Does this need to be said? Don't light fireworks inside of your house. It's already a bad enough idea what these people are doing, where they're trying to put a box over it to see if they can launch it up or something like that. That's already dumb enough. Don't light fireworks off inside. That's insanity. That's absolute craziness. What are you doing that you're lighting off fireworks inside? What was the best case scenario here? What did you think the prime outcome was of what you were attempting to do here? I mean, just what a bad idea. Oh, a Roman candle fight. I'm not going to pretend like I've never done this. When I was a teenager, we would do this. It's a terrible idea. People can get hit in the face. You can get really, really badly hurt. This is just hectic footage here. I mean, who knows what's going on here? What's happening? So probably it looks like somebody's stash just went up. It looks like somebody lit off a firework too close to somebody's stash. All of their stuff was together, and now it's all going off at the same time. It probably wasn't all set up and down, so that's why it's going horizontal and just shooting all over the place. Again, and then here we go. This is so far. There was the guy who had the thing in his butt, but this is the dumbest thing so far. By the way, I can tell that the bald head is having some issues with the background, so I don't have a divot in my head. But what does this guy think is going to happen? He thinks he's going to let go of the bottle rocket with his teeth the second that it goes up. That's obviously not going to happen. He's going to end up with burns all over his face. Yeah, that guy just got 2nd or 3rd degree burns all over his face. And you wonder if he learned anything from this. Is he going to change his decision-making process going forward? Or is he just going to keep doing dumb stuff like this? I imagine this isn't the first dumb thing he did in his life, and I would guess it's not going to be the last dumb thing he does in his life. What do we have here? So, that's just a tip. A cake tipped over. Should have secured it better, but it happens to everybody, like I said. This is another one, not enough lift charge, so it didn't go up nearly high enough in the air, and it just exploded way too close to the ground.
Bag up, bag up, bag up, Terry. Would it revert?
Probably better for me not to comment on this one.
Oh, Lord.
I don't know what equipment is failing here, whether it's his brain or his chair, but obviously he just can't get out of the way. Luckily, this cake is not failing, so it's just shooting straight up and nobody's getting hurt. But yeah, get yourself away. Okay. This is stupidity compounded. You have a firework going off and you're trying to drift your car around the firework. And meanwhile, you have a group of people that are really tight in on the situation there. I mean, this is inevitably going to go bad. What could possibly go right here? And sure enough, there he goes. He knocks over the cake. Now it's sideways. And so you have cars drifting. You have fireworks going off in the middle of crowds of people. I mean, that is just stupidity on top of stupidity. Speaking of stupidity on top of stupidity, this is a terrible idea. I don't need to explain to you why this is such a bad idea. And there it is demonstrated. Now he's burnt all over the place. Another person. What is it with people putting fireworks in their mouths and in their crotches and in their butts? What is happening, people? What are we doing? Don't do that. What I've been playing with fireworks since I was a kid. And you want to hear something funny? The very first firework I ever did actually went wrong. I lit off a bottle rocket and it shot off. I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. It shot off directly at my father and it exploded on his shoe. The very first firework I ever did went wrong. And anybody that's been playing with fireworks their entire life has done some dumb things. But literally at no point in my entire life have I ever had any motivation to put a firework in my mouth and light that thing off. And this girl is now going to have her eyebrows missing. She's going to have burns all over her face. I mean, just what a dumb idea. All right, what do we got here? Oh, man. Yeah, that's a salute shell that just went off right above the ground in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And then it's going to start a fire. That is just absolutely horrendous. I mean, oh, wow. Got to have enough lift charge in your shells. Don't make shells at home. What did this guy just light off? Oh, amazing. That's a spinner or a zip, which you can only light on a flat, hard surface. And they're really unpredictable as it is. Even if you do it in a wide open space on a flat, hard surface, it could easily go any direction. And this guy did it on the grass, which means that there was no way for him to know which way it was going to go. And unlucky enough, it went directly in his face. Hopefully he learned his lesson. This is a commercial show, like a municipality probably putting it on. And you can see one of the shells broke too close to the ground, and you can see the smoke. There's now a fire going on the ground. And so all of the fuses are getting lit off at the same time. So their whole display, their whole show is going off at the same time. This looks like it's the same angle, another angle of the same show. And you can see that there's now a raging fire going on the ground. And just one piece after another is going up. It looks cool, but what should have been probably a 20 to 30 minute firework display is all happening in a matter of a minute or two here. And I mean, again, you end up with sky bomb. It looks cool. It looks like this is just another angle of the exact same disaster here. You have to admit it looks cool. I mean, that looks cool, but that is not how they planned for this to go. And again, just a failure of one piece, a failure of one shell just had this catastrophic domino effect. And it sparked off, and now all of a sudden they have all sorts of fuse jumping, all sorts of pieces are being lit off when they weren't supposed to. There's a fire going down on the ground, and so that's catching on all their pieces, and they're getting lit from the wrong direction, so the charge isn't going off, so they're not going up in the air, they're just exploding on the ground. Just a compounded disaster here. You have a little fountain going off, and again, this is obvious what was about to happen here. They didn't spread their fireworks out. So what they did was they had their stash all together, bunched up, and they lit off the fountain. But then that fountain, that's fire, and fire can light fuses. So the sparks from the fountain started landing on the fuses of their other cakes. Some of them probably weren't even turned up the right way because they weren't planning on lighting them. And now they're just going all over the place. Gotta be safe, people. And then just another one, lighting a firework inside. What are you doing? That looked like maybe it was even a flare. Yeah, I don't even think that was a firework. I think that was a flare that she lit off. And again, you could burn your whole building down. She's in a building. You can see she's in a building, not in a house. You could burn the whole building down. Looks like this is just a cake that fell over on its side, although it looks like there's multiple. It may just be people being idiots. What's going on here? Oh, man. Now that's dumb. This person lit off a firework cake inside of the trunk of their car. And what happened is, as the shots tried to go up into the air, they had the trunk open. And so they were hitting off the lid of the trunk and shooting off to the side instead of going straight up. That's a really, really dumb decision. Oh and the car's ruined. That's it. That's the end of the car. The car's on fire. That's the end of this car. And the cake is still going. It wasn't the worst idea in the world to close that trunk to at least try to keep people safe. The car was a done deal as it was. So to try to close the lid of that car to try to keep people safe was actually pretty smart thinking. But then they opened it back up and the cake is still going off. And you can see these shells hitting the trunk of the car and then getting launched off in all sorts of different angles. That's a heck of a dangerous situation. And then we have a cake that's on its side. Again, it looked like it was from the very beginning, at least from the beginning of the footage. So they may have lit it wrong. You always have to make sure you know what direction your cake is facing before you actually light it off. You need to make sure that the tubes are all facing upwards. I remember I know somebody who just he looked at it because a lot of the writing looks the same regardless of which way you put it, and he had not had a lot of experience with fireworks, and so he just assumed that the fuse was supposed to come from the top of the firework, and so that's how he put it. He put the cake down and he had the fuse upwards. He lit the fuse, and of course that meant that it was pointing directly sideways, and it looks like this was lit sideways from the beginning. And of course, you have all these people that have to film what's going on. Just run. Just get away. These things will hurt you. Oh, God. What's happening here? Okay, so I actually don't think this is a fail. I think I've seen footage of this before. This is a festival where this is supposed to happen. Doesn't mean it's safe, but this is actually supposed to be happening. And they light these rockets off that shoot off into the crowd. It's almost like the running of the bulls. And they shoot these rockets off that go into the crowd, and people run along with the rockets. So I think that this is mislabeled. I don't think this is a fail. I've seen this before. It's very cool looking, extremely dangerous. But, if you know what you're getting into and you're willing to accept the danger, it is what it is. But I think that's what's happening here. I think this is meant to be happening. I don't think that was a fail. We have a single shell going up, probably a big, big, big shell, at least 6 inches. And it just runs out of steam, starts coming back down to the ground. It did not have nearly enough lift. Or the other thing that could have happened here is, unless he had actually hit the ground. Yeah, there it goes. It hits the ground. So it's also because it looked like it went pretty high up in the air. The other thing is that a firework, so it has the charge at the bottom of it that gets lit, and that's an immediate explosion that sends it up into the air, right? That then lights a fuse that goes up into the ball, and that's a slow fuse. And a well-made firework is timed out so that it reaches the black powder in the middle of that shell when it gets to the top of its trajectory, right? It looks to me like what happened here was that was not fused up well. It may have had a good enough lift charge, but the fuse was either too slow or too long. And so by the time it got up to the top of its trajectory, it still had not reached that charge in the middle of the shell. And so then obviously gravity takes over. It starts coming back down, and it didn't go off until it got itself all the way down to the ground. Beautiful glitter effect with willows. That would have looked really nice if it had exploded up in the air, but it just wasn't well made. I would say that's simply a shell that wasn't well made. Let's see an explosion on the ground. And then, oh man, now it's just going all over the place. Again, it looks like a couple of cakes tipped over. It could be that one tipped over, knocked over another cake, and now you have them both going off at the same time. And again, people just standing around, just run. What are you doing? Run away. Here we go. Here's some smart people. Run away. When a firework is going off like that, run away. I bet you this was at a pyrotechnics convention. Again, I'm not sure that was a fail. I want to go back and watch that again. I'm not 100% sure that this was a fail, as it was a domino effect type reaction that they were hoping to have happen. because you can see how many people are not running away and just watching it happen. I think that was mislabeled. I bet you that was not a
Steve, you gotta
fail.
put both your hands
Here we
up
have
in the
another
air.
obvious stupidity. I mean, it knocks him onto his back. And of course, he's dumb enough to try to stand back up again. Once you were on your back and that thing was pointed upwards, that was probably, we'll get back to this, that was probably the safest position you possibly could have been in for such a stupid thing that you were trying to do. Just stay on your back and let it be vertical, cover your face, do whatever you can to protect your extremities, but don't don't continue. Don't then try to stand back up again and correct it. Just, I mean, I realize in the heat of the moment, no pun intended, but in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult to make good decisions. But that was not a good decision, not a good series of decisions from the very beginning. Obviously, it was stupid to do this in the first place. And you can see now all of a sudden he falls backwards. And instead of just standing there, it could have just sort of almost harmlessly gone up in the air. Instead of saying, he keeps on trying to correct himself, and then it gets really messed up. And here you can see this is just a cake that's on its side. It's shooting out horizontally instead of vertically. And again, people just standing around. How is it not your instinct? Now they're scattering a little bit. The cake is over already. How is it not your instinct from the very beginning to get yourself out of there? And yeah, and oh man, that sucks. You can see somebody is actually hurt. That's what can happen. I mean, it's important to look at that for a second, to be honest with you, because a lot of this stuff, it looks cool and it's like, oh, so funny, you know, oh, these guys messed up, oh, this guy is so stupid. And look, here's a person who actually got hurt. They're down on the ground. People are coming over trying to help them. This looks like just a whole stash went up. Again, probably one cake went bad and they lit off everything else that the person had, and a whole stash is going up here all at the same time, and they didn't have it positioned correctly, so shells are just going all over the place. Gotta be safe, people. Gotta be safe. Cars driving by. I mean, just, you know, just the potential for a real disaster. I mean, it is a real disaster, but for a compounding disaster. And then you can see it started a fire. There's a fire going on now, and the fireworks is still going off. And there's a major fire that's in these professionals coming to put the fire on. Look at that. Wow. Still going up. It's a whole stash. That's somebody's whole stash just going up. That's what's happening. And again, they're probably all bundled up together. This just tips. But on that last one, again, I want to talk about that last one for a second. They bunched all of their fireworks together. They lit one off. One of them went wrong, and then it was just a cascade of failures after that, because it just lit off one after another after another. They didn't have them all vertical, probably because they just had them stacked up, maybe even stacked up on top of each other. They may have had 3, 4, 5 cakes stacked up on top of each other, waiting to take the next one to take it and light it. And then if that bottom one lights off and starts shooting up into those other 5, and then you're in serious trouble. That seems to me what happened there. His whole stash just went off at the same time. Here you just have a cake that tipped over. Some people having fun out on the street. They didn't block the cake correctly and tipped over. And yeah. I've seen this video before. This is like the ultimate firework. This is a firework factory that went up in flames, and you can see. You can see what's happening here. There's a huge fire. Obviously, it's a structure fire, so there's an enormous amount of smoke. There's a huge amount of fire, and at the same time, there's effects going on within this gigantic raging inferno. I've seen this video before. This is a fireworks factory that went up in flames. If you ever want to know what that potentially could look like, this is what it is. It's a huge fire that happens to have firework effects going on in the middle of it. So yeah, that's it. I mean, there's some crazy stuff in there. You know, there was definitely a lot of equipment failure. I would say mostly human failure. You know, some of it could have been environmental failure. And what I mean by that is like the wind blowing something. And so some of those cakes tipping over certainly could have been because of the wind, you know, not necessarily just because people are being irresponsible or dumb. You never know. Definitely at least a few different pieces that actually failed, but almost always, and this is what you always have to remind yourself, almost always when fireworks go wrong, it's because somebody is doing something they shouldn't be. Somebody's doing something dumb. And so you have to be safe out there. If you enjoyed this and you're interested in seeing more fireworks reaction videos, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to keep doing them. This was a lot of fun. Otherwise, that's going to do it this time for Northside Pyro. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and we will see you in the next one.